Greetings friends, hey you, welcome to my channel and welcome to today's Morbid makeup video. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if this is your first time or if you just haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out new videos every week, both true crime and beauty related, and I would love to hang out with you, specifically you. Please join us. Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about a case that was actually suggested by one of you guys. So as always, thank you for your suggestions, and leave any suggestions for cases you'd like to see me cover in the description box below, because I get a lot of my ideas that I don't already have from you guys. This is one that I already did know about and I did plan to do. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet, but in being asked to do so, I pushed it to the top of my list. But anyways, today we're going to be discussing the Watts family murders. This is a case that, as I said, I did know about already, the basics of it, but I decided to do a deeper dive per your suggestion, and it is a sad one, man. So just a heads up, this case is about a man, and I use that term loosely, who murdered his pregnant wife and his 2 young daughters, then went on national TV and begged for their return, like the worm of a man that he is. So viewer discretion, this is a sad one. This is one that, when doing my research, it was really tough. I came upon a video of the older daughter, Bella, who was killed, and she was in her car seat and she was singing a song about how amazing her daddy was and how he was her hero. And when I say that I ugly sobbed, I like lost it for a second and I had to just compose myself because it was just so incredibly sad. This person did not deserve the family that he had. And these types of cases just, they get to me sometimes, and it may get to you too because it is a sad one, but we will get through it, so let's just get into it. So for a little backstory, the subjects of today's case, Shannon and Chris Watts, met in 2010 in North Carolina, and after 2 years of dating, they married in November of 2012. The couple relocated in 2013 to Colorado, where they bought their first home, and then the same year, on December 17th, they welcomed their first baby girl into the world, Bella Watts. For all intents and purposes, Chris and Shannon had a great life, finding each other, finding love, buying a house, moving to a beautiful state like Colorado, and then having a beautiful baby girl. It seemed like they were just living the dream of what everyone wants, or what most people want, the picture-perfect life. In 2015, from an outsider's perspective, everything seemed to be going great for the couple in Colorado. Chris had secured a job at Anadarko Petroleum, which I did Google it, and it seems that they work in hydrocarbon exploration. I don't know either, but the company was mentioned in Forbes, so big stuff. Fancy stuff. Shannon, who had previously worked in human resources at a children's hospital, had decided to quit her job and be a stay-at-home mom because on July 17th of 2015, the couple welcomed their second baby girl into the world, named Celeste Watts, who they gave the adoring nickname of Cece. Eventually, while staying home, Shannon had started working for a company called Lavelle, which is essentially like, it's an MLM, so it's like a pyramid scheme, essentially, like Herbalife. You know the type. We've all heard of the type or known a person who sold these types of products. But unlike most people who get involved in those types of jobs, Shannon was actually doing really well at the job. Shannon was the type of woman who was very dynamic and had a extroverted and outgoing personality. She had a kind voice and she knew how to use it to engage with people and to like connect. She had a Facebook page and she would often go on Facebook Live and just talk about the products, talk about her life, connect with her customers and her community, because part of that job is not only selling the product, but it's selling yourself. It's selling the life that you live and the happiness that you have, and trying to get other people on board to have a similar type of life. And she was good at doing this. And I think this type of job probably appealed to her because first off, she was good at it. And second, I can imagine, I'm not a mother, but I can imagine that being a mother seems incredibly lonely, and it seems like it's easy to lose yourself in that, and I could see that she would want something for Shannon the person, not Shannon the mother, not Shannon the wife, but Shannon the person to call her own, and she was good at it, so she could use the skills that she had to do something that gave her satisfaction and also brought money into the house. Something just for her that she could be proud of. And I'm sure that she was proud because, as I said, she did very well at this job. She ended up being awarded a company car, and she got to often go on business trips and travel and just be happy in the success that she had in her job. Where Shannon was very extroverted and talking and open, Chris was, you know, the opposite. He was shy and he was quiet and he kept to himself, but despite their differences, opposites attract, as they say, and the two were known as being like a happy couple. They were seen as ideal and in love, and that they had a good relationship. This is what people in the public saw, and this is what people online saw, but as we all know, most people and most couples put on their happy face and their best face online. But of course, behind the happy and successful exterior, there was underlying resentment and money troubles, with the couple actually filing for bankruptcy in 2015. So we're gonna fast forward to 2018, where our story actually takes place. And on June 11th, Shannon goes on Facebook Live to give Chris a special surprise, a positive pregnancy test. The couple was expecting their third child, who all people said that they both wanted. Chris seemed genuinely happy in this video. He might have been a little less excited than like I'd like my husband to be if I was telling him I was pregnant, but I mean, this was their third baby. I imagine that after the first couple, the excitement level dulls. Let me know if I'm wrong if you have multiple kids. But either way, Shannon was pregnant, and the family had planned to do a gender reveal party in August after they got the baby's sex. So a few weeks later, at the end of June, Shannon and the two girls, Bella, who is 4 at this point, and Celeste, who is 3, leave for a 6-week-long vacation to North Carolina to visit family, and they go on this trip without Chris. One of Shannon and Chris's neighbors said the night before Shannon left, he heard the couple having an argument, and he described it as flat-out screaming. It's unclear why Chris didn't join his family on this trip to North Carolina. I'd imagine he used work as an excuse not to go. But work was not the only thing that Chris was planning to be doing during the 6 weeks that his wife was gone. Chris had a new girlfriend named Nicolekessinger. The two worked together and had started a relationship in early July, which is literally right after Shannon left with the kids on her trip. So I imagine that the flirtation actually started earlier than that. But either way, Chris took this 6-week opportunity to really fast track that relationship, spending almost every night with Nicole, and the two even reportedly looked at apartments together. Chris wanted to start over with a new life and a fresh start without the baggage of an ex-wife and 3 little kids to hold him back. Because he's a piece of shit. So anyway, while away, Shannon can tell by the way that Chris is texting and the way he's communicating with her in general, or not communicating with her in general, that something is wrong. A woman knows. A woman can tell when the man she's been married to for 6 years starts to become distant with her. But while he is not responding to his pregnant wife, who's calling him over and over, texting him over and over, he is making plenty of time to talk to his new girlfriend. Shannon tells him over and over that she loves him and she misses him and she feels like he's being distant and she wants to know what's wrong and what she can do to fix it. But he proceeds to tell her that it's nothing, that he's just stressed out with work and it's preoccupying him. But what's really preoccupying him is his new girlfriend, Nicole. But Shannon's not dumb, right? She can tell that something's obviously off with Chris, so she texts her friends and she says, you know, something's up with Chris, he's being distant, he's not talking to me. He's not like showing me affection and loving me, and you know, they tell her, you know, don't worry, he's probably just stressed. Maybe it's hormones, you know, whatever friends say to make their friend who has a rightful concern feel a little better about the situation. Tell her whatever they need to so she won't worry. But Shannon did have the right to worry, because during the 6 weeks that she was away, Chris's relationship with his new girlfriend was escalating. Chris and his new girlfriend were going out in public, going on dates, going to a car museum, going to the Great Sand Dunes National Park. They were sending naked photos back and forth. Chris was even looking online to find vacation spots for him and his new girlfriend. All the while, his pregnant wife is trying to get a hold of him and he's just flat out ignoring her. She's worried about him. She's worried about their marriage. She's suggesting couples therapy and he's just ignoring her. So July 31st, as was already planned, Chris flies to North Carolina to meet up with Shannon. The plan was for him to fly out there and then spend some time with his family and then come back with Shannon and the girls all together. While Chris was there in North Carolina, he was quiet and distant, probably because while he was there with his wife and his kids and visiting his family, he was busy texting his girlfriend back and forth and making sure to hide all the evidence of their affair in a secret app that he had on his phone. So there was this app that he had that looked like a calculator, but then you would put in a little code and it would open up a folder where you could hide everything. So he was putting in all the photos that they had taken over the last 6 weeks during their little vacation that they went to together over when they stayed overnight in the sand dunes, the nude photos, all of it hiding in the calculator app. And that's where he housed all of his dirty little scumbag secrets that he had. So on August 8th, 2018, Shannon goes in for her 15-week ultrasound appointment, and this is where she finds out the gender of her baby. She is going to be having a little boy that she plans to name Nico Watts, and he is due January 31st, 2019. That same day, Shannon canceled the gender reveal party that her and Chris had planned to do for that month, telling her friends that her and Chris weren't doing well, that they weren't happy, that he didn't love her anymore, and that he didn't want the baby. So naturally, she didn't really feel like celebrating it. She had even asked him to go to counseling, and he said no. So the next day, Shannon and a friend of hers that just happened to also be named Nicole, the good Nicole, not the girlfriend Nicole, the two of them flew to Phoenix, Arizona for a work business trip for Lavelle. While there, Shannon seemed down, sad, off. The light that had been in her had been dimmed, and with it, that magnetic personality that got her to where she was gone. While there, she wrote Chris this really long letter, and I read it, and man, it makes your heart hurt. It really does, because she obviously really, really loved Chris, and he didn't care at all, dude. Like, she's writing this letter to him, having no idea what he had been doing and what he was going to do to her and to her little girls. While Shannon was gone on this trip, Chris asked a neighbor if they could watch his daughter so he could again go on a date with Nicole. Obviously, he told the neighbor that he was doing something else, but that's what he was doing. On August 12th, Shannon sent a draft of something that she planned to say to Chris to one of her friends through a text. In this, like, practice conversation, she wrote about how she wanted to ask him what she needed to do to help him and what she could do to help save their marriage. His distance and lack of emotion towards her was making her nuts, and she didn't think it was good for her health or the health of their unborn baby, and Shannon planned to have this conversation with Chris when she returned home the next day on August 13th. Shannon and her friend Nicole head home to Colorado. Shannon and Nicole's flight ended up getting delayed, so Shannon didn't get home until 2 a.m., approximately 2 a.m. on August 13th. Nicole dropped her off at home, and this is the last time anyone but Chris Watts saw Shannon alive. The next morning, Nicole, Shannon's friend, had texted Shannon because she knew that Shannon had a doctor's appointment that morning at 10 a.m. and she also knew that Shannon had been down with everything going on with Chris, so she texted her to see how the appointment went and how she was feeling. And Shannon was the type of person that apparently anytime she would have one of these appointments, she would always text Nicole. I got the vibe that was her best friend, so she would always text Nicole and let her know how it went, and if Nicole didn't text her back fast enough, she would call her. I am that friend. I know that friend, so I know how Shannon was. And when Nicole woke up that morning, she didn't have a text from Shannon at all. So she texted her asking her how it went. And when she didn't get a response, she started to panic. Shannon always had her phone on her, whether it be texting her friends, talking to her friends, being on social media, doing the Lavelle thing. She was on her phone. She was that person. So it made no sense for her not to respond. So immediately this sent up red flags to Nicole, and Nicole headed over to the Watts home. So Nicole got to the house and she started to knock on the door, but she got no answer. But apparently their house had, like, I don't know what the system was called. It made me think of like the Ring doorbell thing, but essentially anytime anyone would go to the door, it would send an alert to Chris's phone letting him know that somebody was there. So when she went to the door and nobody answered and she had been knocking, Chris could see that she was there. And I'm not sure if she called Chris or if he spoke to her over like an intercom system. I saw it reported both ways, but either way, Nicole and Chris spoke, and Nicole was like, yo, I can't get a hold of Shannon. That's really weird. That's my friend. What's going on? Do you know where she is? And he was like, oh, you know, she mentioned that she was gonna have like a play date with the girls today, so that must be where she is. Nicole obviously wasn't buying this because Shannon had not mentioned that this was happening, and they were very close and they talked a lot. So she looked inside the garage and she saw that Shannon's car was still there, and in it were both of the girls' car seats. So unless she left on foot, which is highly unlikely and didn't make sense to her either, there's no way they could have gone anywhere. She could feel in the pit of her stomach that something was wrong, so she tried to go in their house, and when she did, Chris contacted her again and was like, stop trying to go in my house, you need to leave. So Nicole told Chris that she was gonna call the police. It turns out Shannon had also missed her 10 o'clock doctor's appointment, and Shannon never missed appointments. She had left without her car, without the car seats, and without her phone, and this made no sense. This was a woman who was always on her phone, and this is a woman who had a strict schedule that she stuck by. She was a single mom with 2 girls. She did things in a routine, and this was just too out of character for Shannon, for Nicole to be comfortable. So even though Chris was like, don't worry about it, everything's cool, don't call the cops, Nicole did call the cops, rightfully so, and I'm glad that she did, obviously. And she told Chris, like, hey, I called the cops, and he's like, I'm gonna head home right now. So the police get there before Chris, and they realize that they don't have access to the house. So they call Chris, and I guess they had like a code thing on their garage that you can put in a code and enter, and they called Chris and they asked for the code and said that they wanted to go in and get permission to enter, and he was like, oh, you know, the gate, that code thing doesn't work, I'm on my way home, I'll let you in when I get there. Probably because he didn't want the police entering without him, so he could kind of monitor the situation and see what they're looking at. So Chris arrives home and he's just sort of like strolls up. He doesn't have any sense of urgency considering his pregnant wife and his 2 girls are missing, to the point that her friend called the police. So he walks up and he immediately enters the garage and goes straight into Shannon's car. Doesn't say anything to the police, doesn't say anything to Nicole, just walks, goes, and gets into her car, like leaning in. And to this day, I don't know what he was looking for or what he was doing, but that's what he did. And then he got out of the car and walked straight in the house. Didn't say anything. Nothing. Like a weirdo, right? Ugh. So when they entered the home, everything seemed relatively normal, except for the house was like super clean, like whole place smelled of cleaning products clean. But apparently this wasn't out of the ordinary for their household, because Shannon was like a really good housekeeper. She was very obsessed with keeping her space clean. So even though in any other situation, someone's missing, the whole house smells like cleaner, it wasn't that unusual because their house was always like that. What was unusual is that the bed sheets from the girls' beds, as well as his and Shannon's bed, was missing. They were all missing, no bed sheets. Another thing that police found odd is that Shannon's purse, her phone, her keys, the kids' stuff, it was all left in the home, and this was so unlike Shannon again that police started to get suspicious that something more was going on here. So as is normal, police asked Chris, like, what happened with you and your wife the last time you saw her? And what Chris told police is that Shannon arrived home at about 2 a.m., that the 2 had sex and then went to bed, and then he woke up at 5 a.m. for work, and when he woke up, she and him then got into a heated discussion about the status of their relationship. And then he left for work that morning, and Shannon and the girls were still in the house when he left. So police start interviewing neighbors, and you know, have you seen anything? Have you seen Shannon? Did you see anything weird? And in doing so, they come across a neighbor, next door neighbor, who provided his surveillance camera footage that showed the Watts driveway. So police, the neighbor, and Chris watched the footage together, and it shows him in the driveway at 5:30 in the morning that his wife and his daughters disappear. And bro, when I tell you that his face, he looked like he was going to his pants right then and there. Like he was freaking out. You can see Chris, whose truck had been parked on the street, back his truck into the garage, which apparently he never did, and then you see him start to load items into the truck. You can't tell what he's loading in, but he makes 3 trips. While they're watching the footage, Chris explains over and over why he backed the truck in and what the items were that he was putting in the truck, and he repeats himself over and over and over, and he's got his arms like above his head, and he's rocking back and forth like he cannot stop moving. This guy is losing his shit. His reaction's just crazy. If I can find it online, I will link it down below, and you should watch it because it is very telling, extremely telling. So the officer tells Chris that there is a detective next door who would like to question him, and Chris is like, so can I go now? And he's like, yeah, go. So Chris goes over to talk to the other detective, and when Chris leaves and it's just the police officer and Chris's neighbor's like, this guy's acting funny. He's not acting like himself at all. He's acting super suspicious. This guy never, ever talks. So the fact that he's going over and over and explaining over and over and over like what he was putting in the truck, why he was doing it, it's weird. And he's like, I've lived next to them a while. He never backs his truck in. So the day that his wife and his girls go missing, he just happened to back his truck into the driveway, happened to load 3 different loads into the truck. Suspicious, weird, he's acting not right. No. So the other officer questions Chris, which is normal because they want to see if he changes his story, if there's any discrepancies and details, things like that. And he does tell a little bit of a different story. He says that Shannon and him had their emotional conversation at 4 a.m. instead of at 5 a.m., which he told the first officer that he woke up at 5 a.m. for work and they talked then. Now the talk happened at 4 a.m. and he said that when they had this conversation, he told her that he wanted a divorce, that he wasn't happy in the marriage anymore, and that the two cried together over this. This guy is dumb. Am I right? Isn't he just like kind of dumb? Because, okay, murder's wrong. I would never want anybody to get away with it. But if you kill somebody and you're trying to get away with it, maybe you don't tell the police that you guys were having marital issues. It seems like that's automatically going to get them to look at you and put you in their radar. But, you know, this guy's dumb, so that's what he did. Big old dumb Chris Watts. So the next day, Chris gives 3 separate interviews to the media about his wife's and his daughter's disappearances. And if you've watched them, I'm sure you probably have, and if you haven't, you should. He seems super insincere. He's smiling a lot during it. He's laughing a lot during it. He keeps repeating himself over and over and over. He holds himself really tight. He's like this the whole time, and it's like he doesn't know what to say. He's not speaking genuinely. It's like he's trying to be careful not to say something that's going to incriminate him instead of being sincere because sincerely, he murdered them, you know? The only time you ever really see any sort of emotion on his face that I noticed is there's a point where the interviewer asks him what his daughter's names were and how to spell them. And when he answers, the person who's recording zooms in on his face, which is interesting. And at that moment, he seemed troubled. To me, he seemed like he felt something. He kind of like did this action like, and then spelled it. And it seemed like it hit him like a wave, and good. I hope he's hit with those waves of realization of what he's done over and over and over for the rest of his life, but I honestly, seriously doubt that he will. Because this guy is nuts. This is a man who murdered his wife, murdered his daughters, and then went on national TV and begged for their return. That's a special kind of sick that I just don't understand. And I don't think you can do that and feel guilty at the same time. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel. So the police start to investigate and they start to see past this picture of the perfect family that's been presented to the public and online. Though to the public they seemed like a happy and financially stable family with the big house and the car and the kids and the smiles and the love, ready to welcome their new baby boy into the world, there was a dark hidden underbelly of that, and that was that there was resentment and money troubles and bankruptcy and an affair. They also find out that the morning that the 3 went missing, Chris had called the girls' school and told them the girls would no longer be attending. Not that they wouldn't be attending that day, that they would no longer be attending school, period. Maybe he was, I don't know what, he didn't want to call attention to the fact that they were missing, because if they didn't go to school, the school might call the police, but that's just, again, he's dumb. Dumb Chris Watts. So August 13th, the same day that his wife and kids are being investigated for being missing, Chris Watts is speaking to a realtor about selling his house. And he is deleting at the same time all the messages and incriminating evidence of his affair with Nicole. Little did he know that Nicole had already been speaking to the police and had admitted the affair, but she said that it wasn't serious and it was casual and it only lasted a couple months, but we are gonna come back to Miss Nicole later. She is a footnote for us. So August 15th, the FBI starts to question Chris about his affair, which he denies. He says there was no affair, with him at least, that they were just unhappy and had fallen out of love, but perhaps Shannon was having an affair. That was possible. Dick. Police ask Chris to take a polygraph test, which he does, and he fails miserably. When pressed after the polygraph test, instead of admitting to the murders, he admits to the affair, and he says that he did hurt her emotionally by having the affair, but he would never hurt her physically, and he didn't even want to hurt her emotionally. Just when he met Nicole, it was love at first sight, and he had never felt that way before. Dumb Chris Watts. So while being interviewed, Chris would still not confess to the murders. He confessed to the affair, but he wouldn't confess to the murders. So when Chris requested to speak to his father, the police were like, this is a good idea, and they let him speak to his dad. And it's at that point where he confesses to killing Shannon to his dad. He doesn't confess to killing the girls, but he does say that he killed Shannon because Shannon hurt his girls. On August 15th, Chris is arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. So while all of this is happening, and Chris is denying it, admitting to his dad, the whole shebang, cops had gotten the GPS from Chris's work truck, and they had already figured out where he had been that morning, and they did like an aerial drone video, where they looked at where he had been, and they saw the bed sheets that had been on the girls' beds, along with disturbed earth. The bodies were found August 16th. He then confessed to the police. And in his story, let's cover his first story. So, Chris's first story is that when Shannon came home at 2 a.m., after they had sex, they got into a fight where she accused him of having an affair. And after that fight, he saw on the baby monitor that Shannon was strangling his daughters. So, in a fit of rage, he strangled Shannon with his hands. And he says that she didn't fight him back, that she just looked up at him, and that it seemed like she was praying. According to the autopsies that came out later, his first story didn't make sense. All 3 did die from asphyxiation, but only Shannon had been strangled. She had been manually strangled by his own bare hands, but the 2 small girls had been smothered. Chris was charged with 9 felonies. 3 counts of first-degree murder for murdering his pregnant wife and his 2 daughters. 3 counts of first-degree murder after deliberation, which I had to look that up because I was like, what does that mean? And apparently it seems to be the same as premeditation, so he had thought and deliberated whether or not he wanted to do it and chose to do it. He was also charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder of a victim under 12 years old while in a position of trust because he was their father. 1 count of first-degree termination of a pregnancy because he also killed baby Nico. And 3 counts of tampering with a deceased body. Chris Watts pled guilty on November 6, 2018 to avoid the death penalty, which Shannon's parents agreed to because they knew in order to get the death penalty it would take a lot longer and they just wanted it to be done. But with him pleading guilty to these charges, he will be in jail for the rest of his life. When he made his plea, he was asked if he had anything he wanted to say, and he said no. He had nothing to say for himself, and I doubt anyone would be interested to hear what he had to say. Anyway, Chris was sentenced to life in prison on November 19th, 2018. In February of 2019, Chris Watts finally admitted what had actually happened in the early morning hours of August 13th, 2018. And we're gonna discuss that now. It's gonna be upsetting. I'm gonna warn you because he admitted what he did to his girls. Of course, I'm not gonna do anything for shock value. I'm just gonna give you what happened. So, additional viewer discretion right here. When Chris finally told the truth, he admitted that it was him who killed the girls and not Shannon. He said that when she got home at 2 a.m., they had sex just like he had previously said, and that they did get into a fight when she accused him of having an affair, even though he did. All of that part was true. He says that he then killed Shannon and wrapped her body in a sheet, and in doing all of this, his older daughter Bella had woken up and had seen him and started to cry and asked what happened to her mommy. He then carried Shannon's body downstairs and loaded it into his truck, covering it up with either garbage bags or newspaper so the girls would not see it and freak out, and then he loaded his then still alive daughters into the truck as well. At some point during the drive, Chris made the decision to kill his daughters as well. He may have made this decision earlier, but he says he made it in the truck during the drive. And he drove them out to that oil field, which was 45 minutes from their home. So for 45 minutes, these poor girls drove in the dark with their dad, who had just killed their mother, her body in the truck with them. They were probably scared. They had no idea what was going on. And he had 45 minutes to change his mind, to realize that his life was likely over, but theirs didn't have to be. He could have changed his mind and he didn't, okay? 45 minutes, that's a long drive. It's a long time to think, and he still made the decision he made, so he's a monster, you know? He says that he buried Shannon in that shallow grave before he killed his daughter, so they got to see that happening while they waited in the truck. He killed his youngest daughter first, 3-year-old Cece, by smothering her with a blanket. Bella was next, and she must have seen what happened to Cece, because when Chris approached her with the blanket, she asked him if the same thing was going to happen to her that had happened to Cece, and he says that he didn't respond to her. And her last words were, "No, Daddy," as he smothered her to death as well. He then put his daughter's bodies into 2 separate oil tanks, so they weren't even together, and the opening of the oil tanks were too small to fit their bodies, so he had to forcibly shove them in. Shannon was dressed in a purple t-shirt and her underwear, and she was in her 2nd trimester with baby Nico. As I said before, she was manually strangled, and according to the medical examiner, it happened slowly. She died slowly, and she did not fight back. Bella was wearing a pink pajama top that was covered with butterflies and hearts. The coroner found blunt force trauma on her jaw, and she had injuries to the inside of her mouth. Her shoulder was bruised, and she had bite marks on her tongue. This told investigators that she had fought back against her father as he killed her, and she bit her tongue in the process. Cece was found in a pink and black shirt and her diaper. She didn't have any other injuries on her body. She was only 3 years old, and she couldn't fight back. Chris was initially put in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, and he was on suicide watch. They thought he might kill himself. Probably should have let him. He has apparently found God in prison and tells a bedtime story to a photo of his dead daughters each night. He's such a scumbag. What sort of man? What sort of human being can live with himself after what he did? He says that he feels bad and that he's sorry and that he regrets what he did, but I don't think I actually believe that. If he felt bad, he would have begged for the death penalty. He would rather die than have to relive the images of his wife's life leaving her eyes and have to hear his daughter yell, "No, Daddy," while she struggled under the blanket while he smothered her to death. He would have rather died than live with that if he actually felt bad and if he actually cared. If those things haunted him and he felt bad, he'd beg for death, but he doesn't, and I don't think he cares. I think he wants to live, and I think even if he's locked up, he still wants to experience life, which he doesn't deserve to experience because he took 4 lives away. I know the death penalty is sticky, and when it comes to me and the death penalty, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think every person, I think that it's case-by-case basis. Let's just leave it at that. And I think in this case, I'm fine with it. Chris Watts is pure evil and doesn't deserve to be alive. He lost the right to exist and to live when he murdered his pregnant wife and his 2 baby girls so that he could start a new life with his new girlfriend. He could have gotten a divorce. He could have let them go on and live their lives. He could have gone on and lived his life, but then he would have the baggage of an ex-wife and 3 kids, and he'd look like a bad guy for not being there for them, because he probably wouldn't be, let's be real. And it would have complicated the image he had in his head for his new life that he wanted to start with his new girlfriend. He didn't want that. He wanted a clean slate with them gone and him able to live his life because he is a selfish bastard. And that's what I think about him. And you know, I don't know how I feel about Nicolekessinger because she says that Chris told her that he was in the middle of getting a divorce and that it was a really casual thing and just a fling and that it wasn't serious, but she made some really interesting Google searches before Shannon and the girls were killed and after. For example, she Googled wedding dresses in the beginning of August and she searched for wedding dresses for 2 hours. That doesn't sound casual to me. After Shannon and the girls went missing, she Googled Shannon's name and she also Googled how to get rid of text messages so that the police can't find them. This is before that anyone knew they were dead. This is just when they were missing. I don't necessarily think she knew what he had done, but I think she definitely suspected it and wanted to get as far away from it as possible. And I don't know, does that make her a bad person? I don't know. I don't know. And then after the fact, she Googled Amber Frey book deal, Amber Frey net worth. And if you don't know who Amber Frey is, that was Scott Peterson's mistress. And if you don't know who Scott Peterson is, that's a whole nother video that I could film. Let me know if you want to see it. But Cliff Notes version, he's another asshole who killed his pregnant wife. And she was Googling, you know, how she could benefit how she could benefit financially from being involved in this scenario. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit ass bananas, and I'm not sure how I feel about her and what type of person she is to do that. So you tell me what you think about that. So that is the story of the Watts family murders. I hope I gave you as much information as you were looking for in a video online about the case. But if you did want to know more information on this case, I do know that Netflix is releasing a documentary at the end of this month called American Murder, The Family Next Door, I believe. And it comes out on the 30th of September. So if this case is something you're interested in, there's a resource for you there. I haven't seen it, obviously, because it's not out, but I do plan to watch it myself to learn more, I guess you could say, or anything I could have, fill in any holes that I might have in my research myself. It's a really upsetting case. I'm finding that I don't know if I can handle doing cases with kids. This case and then the Judith Barcy case that I uploaded recently, they both put me into kind of a spiral, and it's a little bit tough. So I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing cases that involve kids. We'll see. I guess it's sort of the gig, right? But I don't know. I'm debating. Right now I feel like no, because I feel so sad at this moment, but hold it together, lady. Anyways, that's the video. Please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. The world can be a dark place and sad and lonely, and talking about this stuff can seem sad and dark to a lot of people. But doing these videos and seeing you guys enjoying them and watching them and seeing that there's other people who are interested in this, even though it is sad and dark, makes it feel a little less weird and dark. How many times am I going to say dark? I don't know. But it just kind of makes it feel a little worthwhile, you know? So I thank you for that. And I thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else on the internet. You're tight. I think this community's tight. And I hope to see you in my next video.